All right, going live. Just a second here. We see some people in first. All right, looks like we got somebody, so we're going to go live. All right, welcome back to Wmma Now with your host, News. Welcome to a little bit of a continuation of last night's episode of the Wmma Scene Report. I decided to skip over the conversation topics and see, wanted to try to get some more people in tonight. So hopefully I gave enough people notice that they're going to stick around tonight, so, or that they'll get here in time. So I'm going to wait a minute, see if I can get one or two more people in, and then we're going to talk about it, because I want to talk about the UFC Strawweight title picture. I want to talk about Casey ONeill. Read a really good article from an interview with her about why she could have taken the Macy Barber fight in December, and she and her team decided it was best for her to turn it down. And I really liked her reasoning, so I'd like to get some other people's opinions on it. And then you're probably wondering, well, what's with these two fighters here on some Kit Kats? And we'll talk about that as well, because I think what some of the fighters in Japan are doing as far as like a fan service and fan interaction is very creative and definitely more interesting than what a lot of fighters, in the West, particularly in the US, are doing. So anyway, excuse me, allergies. Let's get and talk about the UFC Strawweight title picture here. So we've got a bit of a quagmire here at Strawweight, because we've got some contenders, we've got some fighters that want to sit out. Some of them, at least, well, I think one of the fighters that is willing to sit out and wait for a shot has earned it. I think one is just trying to sit out and wait for the most money, or the fight that allows her to make the most money. And she's already been sitting out for too long. And we have a new contender. I mean, she's been not like a new contender. She's been around for a little bit. But I mean, she just cemented, her place in the title picture. So that's why I want to talk about the UFC Strawweight title picture here. So I'll switch to last night's cover. So let's talk about the Strawweight title picture. So you got Namajunas and Zahn in the most undeserved immediate rematch going on this year. I'm excited for the rematch, but I think that it was completely and totally unnecessary. I mean, I'm sorry, you lose your title in 78 seconds? You don't deserve an immediate rematch. We all know why Zahn is getting the rematch, though. The Chinese money. Lots of money over there in China, and the UFC wants it. The UFC, they constantly want money. They're constantly being greedy. And that's why Zahn is getting this immediate title rematch that, she has not earned. So unfortunately we have this, and we might even end up with a trilogy out of this. Because if Zahn wins, but it's a really exciting, thrilling fight, we could easily end up with a trilogy. I mean, good Lord, we just had Fury versus Wilder in a trilogy fight that honestly nobody asked for that one. In hindsight, it was a good fight. It was a great fight. But leading up to it, nobody was asking for it. So we might end up with a trilogy fight here, which I hate the UFC, and I don't mind a good trilogy. I just think that this rematch shouldn't be happening at all, because there are contenders in the strawweight class. And then you have Wmma, who's number 2 right now in the division, because Zahn's Rose is the champ. Got number 1. Got number 2, Wmma, who hasn't fought since the Zahn fight in March of 2020. Hasn't fought anybody and has shown no inclination of fighting anybody. She's basically said the only fights that interest her right now are a third fight with Rose or a rematch with Zahn. The UFC could very well be looking to make either of those fights. Well, I don't think she gets the trilogy fight with Rose because she already lost twice. So if Rose retains the title, I don't see Wmma getting the title shot necessarily. Because why? What has she done to earn a trilogy fight with Rose, especially for the title? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, what they could do, though, is if Zahn wins, they could immediately go for Zahn Wmma 2. That first fight, I mean, their fight was in March of last year, was very thrilling. I mean, it was nonstop action. It was one of the best ladies fights in a long time, possibly ever. So I could very well see the UFC booking these two in a rematch for the title. Now, does Wmma deserve an immediate shot at the title again after sitting out for close to 2 years? Hell no, she doesn't. Hell no, she doesn't. You don't just sit out for 2 freaking years and get a title shot, unless you're Tyron Woodley. I mean, if you're Tyron Woodley, then maybe. Because that's basically what he did. Sat out for a long time. And the UFC seems content to do that, to let her do that. Just let Wmma sit out, keep her in the rankings until they decide what they want to do with her. Then you got number 3 ranked Esparza. Esparza deserves a title shot. She's earned it. She has the highest winning streak in the division right now, I believe, at 5. At least, all within the UFC. She's just coming off a second-round TKO win over a highly touted, highly ranked fighter in Yan Xiaonan. Very exciting win there. Most dominant she has looked in a long time. And she said, look, I'm willing to sit out and wait for my shot. She thinks she deserves it. And I agree with her. I think she's earned it. She's the one that should be getting the title shot right now. Carla Esparza should be getting the title shot right now. Then we got Marina Rodriguez, who just got herself into serious title contention with the win over Mackenzie Dern. If anybody is deserving of a title shot right now, then she's one as well. However, and I respect her for this, she says that Carla deserves it over her, but she said if offered, she wouldn't turn the shot down. So, I want to talk about these 2 items right here. Bring them over. First one is an article. It says Carla Esparza explains why she's willing to wait for a title shot, and Dana White advises her against it. This is from MMAfighting.com. It's by Damon Martin. He's actually a pretty good writer. This is from Wednesday. It says it was barely a week after Carla Esparza demolished Yan Xiaonan when she received a call that all but assured her she wasn't going to receive the next shot at the strawweight title. Despite 5 wins in a row, including victories over Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson, the former 115-pound champion was offered a fight against Mackenzie Dern later in the year. Now, this came before the UFC had officially announced the strawweight title fight rematch between reigning champ Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili, but Esparza already started to see the writing on the wall that she was probably going to get passed over. It says, quote, "They did offer me the Mackenzie Dern fight," Esparza revealed when speaking to MMA Fighting. I think that was within of like a week of me getting home from my last win. That was also an indicator that they weren't going to for sure give me the title shot next. If they're offering me fights now when they potentially don't have me in mind for the next title fight. It says it was understandably disappointing for Esparza, who was crowned the UFC's first ever strawweight champion back in 2014 with a 3rd-round submission against Namajunas. Esparza believed her resume, combined with the storyline that she earned her way back to a title fight, this time with Namajunas as a champion, would be enough to be awarded that opportunity. Yeah, I agree. When the UFC announced that Namajunas would face Zan again at UFC 268, Esparza wasn't necessarily shocked, but it also didn't cushion the blow that she wasn't going to get a title shot. I can't say that I was 100% surprised, Esparza said. I felt that was the fight to make. As soon as I won my fight, I expected them to say, all right, you get the shot. Just waiting so long and not hearing anything, I kind of suspected that was a big possibility. I can't say that I wasn't bummed out. It's obviously a huge opportunity that not only do I want, but I felt that I deserved. I was bummed, but just reflecting back, can't really control what decision the UFC made the best decision for the company. I'm sure they made that for the company's best interests. I'm just hoping that I get the next one and I'll sit and wait for so long and they pull something like this again. That would honestly be very upsetting. Says right now Esparza is planning her wedding in May, and ideally if she was going to fight again, it would happen before that date, but she doesn't want to make any plans until at least after UFC 268 happens. If Namajunas beats Zan again, Esparza truly believes she will be next for the title, but she doesn't want to make any moves until that fight is finished. She says, I definitely plan to wait for the winner of that fight and kind of see what shakes up at that point, Esparza explained. If it came to a point where Wei Li won and they were like, okay, we're going to do a rematch, and then maybe it's time for me to stay busy. But I've been waiting. It's been nearly 7 years since I won my title. I've worked so hard to get back to this point, and anything in a fight can happen. I've obviously shown that I'm willing to fight anyone and everyone in the division, and I've been doing that my whole career. So it's not a matter of being afraid to fight anyone. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, and I don't want to lose it to impatience. How you doing, Brian Williams? On Tuesday night, following the latest installment of the Contender Series, UFC President Dana White was asked about Esparza waiting for the winner of Namajunas versus Zan, and he didn't seem all that enthusiastic about the idea. White has never been a proponent of fighters waiting on any opportunity that could potentially put them on the sideline for any extended period of time, and that obviously includes Esparza in her current situation. I don't ever agree with that, White said about Esparza's decision to wait for a title shot. I mean, you've seen what happens in the past. When you try to sit out and wait for a title fight, it usually doesn't happen. But it's happened to plenty of people. It happened to Covington. It happened to Tyron Woodley. It happened to probably name a few more people. And Wade says, stuff never falls the way that it's supposed to, and you end up sitting out for too long, and people start to forget about you. It's never a wise decision to just sit out. If you get offered a fight, you should take it. Of course, Esparza knows she can't wait forever, especially when she's armed with the knowledge that the UFC is completely unpredictable when it comes to title fights, no matter how much anyone has seemingly earned that opportunity. For now, she's willing to at least see how the Strawweight title fight plays out on November 6th before answering the phone again if the UFC comes calling. Brian Williams says, tell that to Joanna. Yeah, exactly. I will say that I asked my manager recently, are they at least giving me a guarantee that I'm going to get the winner of this fight or the next fight? And it's kind of crickets, Esparza said. I definitely want to follow up and see what sentiment is there. I definitely think I deserve it, and the fans have kind of backed me on that and expressed the same. I would hope that would be a given. That's an easy answer, but you never know with the UFC how it shakes up sometimes. So yeah, it just seems like that the UFC is not intent on getting Carla Esparza back into the title picture. And as an Esparza fan, it really pisses me off. I think that they're doing her very wrong in this because, I mean, I get it. It is a business. Fight promotion is a business, and you want to go with what makes the most money. And Esparza, as a champion, she doesn't have like a huge fan base. So they're worried about, will she make money as a champ? But here's my thing. If you can't sell a potential rematch 6 years in the making between her and Rose, if Rose comes out ahead after UFC 268, and honestly, this should be Esparza versus Rose at 268. If you can't make a storyline that sells out of the original UFC strawweight title fight. Rematch, 7 years in the making. The former champ has earned her way back, and the girl that she beat is now the champion. And the former champ has now fought for 6 years to get back to this point. If you can't sell that as a story, then I don't know what job you're in. Because to me, that is a storyline that is easy to tell, that is worth telling. People love a comeback story. Americans, the people that actually buy the pay-per-views. Everywhere else is getting the fights on freaking cable or Fight Pass. And in the US, we're stuck paying for title fights on $70 fucking pay-per-views. If you can't sell a pay-per-view based on a comeback story, then you're not a very good fight promoter. And that's all there is to it. Because the Americans are the only one buying pay-per-views forced to pay $70 fucking for it. And I'm sorry, if you can't sell a comeback story, a 6-year-long comeback story in the making, you're not a very good fight promoter. That's all there is to it. So let's listen to Dana White on what he said, because I will play this for you all. I don't know if you'll actually be able to hear it.
Carla Esparza has made it clear, like, hey, I think I'm just going to sit out right now. I think I deserve the winner of the title fight in New York. Do you agree that she would be next? And, is there any way Marina slips in there? Carla has to fight.
I don't ever agree with that. I mean, you've seen what happens in the past. When you try to sit out and wait for a title fight, it usually doesn't happen. Stuff never falls the way that it's supposed to. Then you end up sitting out for too long, and people start to forget about you, and it's never a wise decision to just sit out. If you get offered a fight, you should take it.
So yeah, that's Dana saying, if you get offered a fight, that you should take it. Here's the thing. Why should I take a fight? Why should Carla take a fight that is super risky when she's already earned it? She's already earned her title shot. Within a week or two of her winning her last fight, they tried to give her the Mackenzie Dern fight. Mackenzie Dern was the one getting a big company push. Carla has not received a push at all ever since she lost the title. She has had to fight hard to get back to it. Meanwhile, Mackenzie Dern was getting a big company push. And if they could have given Dern Esparza, who's on a 5-fight win streak, well, that would mean that Dern potentially could beat the fighter that was on the longest win streak in the division, the former champion, and then boom, lines up Dern for the title shot. And they were giving Dern a title shot. It's effed up because they were trying to, pass Carla Esparza over and screw her over, basically, is what that means. Meanwhile, in the same press conference, the same one that Dana White said, I don't think fighters should ever sit out, he was basically praising Wmma, saying, hey, she's got money, she's sitting out, she's taking long vacations, and that's up to her. So it's okay for Wmma to want to sit out, but it's not okay for Esparza, because, we all know what Wmma's doing. She hasn't, been shy about what she's doing. She is waiting to fight either Wmma or Rose or Zan. Those are the only 2 fights she's interested in. Whether or not one of them has a title doesn't matter, as long as she gets one of those 2, preferably both of them. So it's okay for Wmma to sit out, even though she's 2-3 in her last 5, 0-4 in title fights recently. So it's okay for Wmma to sit out, but it's not okay for Esparza, who has been very active lately. I mean, how active has she been exactly? Let me see. So Carla fought once this year in May. She fought twice last year, twice in 2019, twice in 2018, 3 times in 2017, once in 2016, once in 2015. So since 2017, she's been fighting at least once a year, or at least twice a year. she's only fought once this year. But considering that she just came off a huge win, you know, and she has a title shot in the mix, it's not hard to understand why she's sitting out. She's waiting. She's only waiting one more month. You know, that's the thing. Dana White said, "Oh, I don't think anyone should ever sit out." Well, guess what? Namajunas versus Zan 2 is less than a month away. It's, what is it, the 7th, I think? And it's the 15th already. So we only got to wait 20 days. So it's really not that big of a deal to wait another half a month. Wait half a month. See who wins the title. And then we'll go from there. Meanwhile, Marina Rodriguez, you know, I like what she said. And that's why I was cheering for her against Dern. Dern was saying that she was hoping with a win, she'd get to leapfrog Esparza to a title shot. Whereas Rodriguez says, hey, Esparza has earned a title shot. Now, Rodriguez also said that, you know, if she was offered one, she wouldn't say no, but she thinks Esparza's earned it. So that's why I was cheering for her to win. So let's look at the rankings here. So you got the champ Rose, Zan, Wmma, Esparza at 3, 4 Rodriguez, Yan Xiaonan, she's got to pick up a win. Dern, she's got to pick up a win. Nunes has a fight book, Nina Nunes. Claudia Gadelha. Yeah, it's never good for fighters to sit out, but Claudia Gadelha hardly ever fights anymore. And she's sitting there at number 8, has been sitting in that bottom, in that, you know, 6 to 10 position for how long now? When was the last time Claudia fought? Let me see. Claudia hasn't fought since November of last year. She fought twice last year, once in 2019, twice in 2018, twice in 2017. So she's been fairly active as well, but she hasn't fought at all this year. Hasn't even scheduled a bout for this year. And it's already halfway through October. So, and guess what? There's no more, I think every event through the rest of the year is booked. So Claudia Gadelha is going to be sitting out all of 2021. Tisha Torres, she's been active. She's what, 1-3 straight now? And she's hoping to get, you know, a top 10. She's hoping to get a top 5 shot next. But I think she'll get a top 10 fight next. But she's not doing anything right now. She's doing like a fitness competition pretty soon. Yeah, Robert Saltzman says Claudia should have lost to Hill. Arguably should have, just like Watterson. Now I think Watterson did more to win than Claudia did. Brian Williams said Carla may be, you know, so as a pay-per-view main event, but guess what? Neither does Valentina, so make it the co-main. Exactly. They haven't been able to sell. When was the last time the ladies main evented? I think it was Amanda Nunes, who does not sell. So it's not as if they are making the ladies main events, because they haven't been for pay-per-views. I mean, I think Valentina's like first title defense, or whenever she defended against what's her name? Oh, the boring one, Carsnooze. When she defended against Carsnooze, you know, it was the headliner of a freaking fight night, and it was boring as hell. So they haven't had Valentina headlining since then. So they've used ladies as backup, as co-main events. So why is it so hard for them to book, you know, Esparza versus Rose or Esparza versus Zan in a co-main event? And you got Michelle Watterson. I don't think she's fought this year either. Let me see. Michelle Watterson. Okay, so Watterson fought in May, losing to Marina Rodriguez. But she's had one fight all year. Doesn't even seem like she's that active in training right now either. Seems like she's mostly been on vacations. She only fought. Okay, she fought twice. Okay, so she's been doing 2 fights a year as well lately. Well, she fought once in 2016, but she's fought twice every year since then, except for this year. She's only fought once this year. Why isn't she getting booked in another fight? You got me. Amanda Ribas coming off a loss. Okay, so that's the top 10. That's all your top 10. Nina Nunes is barely top 10 at this point. I mean, she took a year and a half, almost 2 years off, and then loses in the first round. So yeah, the title picture here is pretty easy to explain. I mean, there's no controversy here. Soon as this rematch happens, this pointless rematch happens, you make Esparza, you give her a title shot. Just give her the shot. Whether or not you think she'll win, she's earned it. 5 straight wins, coming off a finish over a top 5 fighter. She has earned the freaking title shot. Then you decide, well, are we going to do the trilogy here if necessary, or do we then give it to Rodriguez, or do we give it to Wmma? I'm not in favor of giving Wmma anything right now until she takes a darn good fight and wins. Okay, wins over Tisha Torres, who was on a losing streak at the time, and then a win over Michelle Watterson does not just earn you freaking endless title shot after title shot. So let this fight happen. Give Esparza the next title shot, no matter who wins. Let Wmma maybe fight the loser, or have Rodriguez fight the loser. Then if Rodriguez wins, she gets a title shot. It's not hard, okay? And all of those fights are going to sell because they're all going to be interesting fights. They're all going to have interesting storylines. But the biggest, easiest storyline to sell right now is Esparza versus Rose. If Rose gets the win, boom. Even if Rose loses, you lose that rematch potential, but you still have the comeback. 6.5 years in the making of the former champion, your inaugural champion, getting the title shot again. The comeback story. Everybody loves a comeback story. America in particular loves a comeback story. And if you're selling $70 pay-per-views, guess what? You need compelling storylines to sell it. You need compelling fights and backed up by compelling storylines to sell those $70 pay-per-views. All right, so that's the title picture. Let's move on here. Let's talk about Casey ONeill. This is an article, I guess it's based on an interview. I'm not sure what. But I think this is a very interesting article about how she was offered the fight with Macy Barber. Looks like Erin Blanchfield wasn't the first one to take it. Erin Blanchfield stepped up and took it. But Casey ONeill looks like she was offered it as well and decided to turn it down. Now, normally you think, what the heck are you doing turning down a fight to get into, you just got ranked and now you're going to turn down a fight already? But I'm going to read this article and read her reasons why. And I agree with it. It says, Casey ONeill explains why she ultimately declined UFC 269 fight with Macy Barber. I battled with it for a couple of days. And she had tweeted out that, she was hoping to take a rest for the rest of the year. But she said the temptations keep coming. So let's get into this. It says, Casey ONeill may only be 24 years old, but she is certainly gaining an incredible amount of wisdom that is beyond many of the up-and-coming contenders that preceded her. ONeill is now 3-0 in the UFC. Where was that? Following her third octagon finish, this time against Antonina Shevchenko at UFC Vegas 38 and has entered the official flyweight rankings at number 14. Following her second round TKO win over Shevchenko, King said in her post-fight interview that she wanted to take some time off and improve her skill set before getting back in there. Around 72 hours later, the phone rang. So about 3 days after my fight, I got called to fight in December, ONeill told MMA Fighting on Tuesday. As I said after my fight, I want to take some time off. I said it after my previous fight too, and I ended up getting the call to fight Antonina and said yes. So now I think I have to take a little time to refine my skills and be ready for the challenges that are ahead, because every fight is going to be bigger and bigger from now on. Turns out that the fight that was offered to her was a bout against Maycee Barber at December's UFC 269 pay-per-view event. Barber's original opponent, Montana De La Rosa, suffered an injury that forced her out of the bout and left an interesting opportunity for the flyweight division, which ultimately was taken by fellow flirting upstart Aaron Blanchfield. When ONeill got the offer, she admits that she wanted to take it, but after conversations with those closest to her in the fight game, she ultimately decided to stick with the original plan. I said I would take it in February if she wanted to wait, ONeill explained. I battled with it for a couple of days where I was like, I really want to take it, but I know that I need to listen to the smarter people around me. My coaches and my manager were kind of saying, hey, you're being fast-tracked. If we take this one and get another win, we're talking big fights after that, and you still want to get better and grow, and I do. See, this is very smart thinking by her team here, because we've seen it time and time again with fighters in the UFC. They get on a run, they're hot gun prospects, they're finishing their opponents, they get fast-tracked. And what ultimately happens? They lose, and they lose all of their momentum with it because they get fast-tracked, too fast. They get put into a tough bout that they were not prepared for, they were not ready yet, and they lose. And sometimes some of those fighters never get that momentum back. They just don't. I mean, Maycee Barber right now, she is looking to get that momentum back. She was getting fast-tracked. And we see what happened with her. She lost 2 straight, barely picked up a win against Miranda Maverick that a lot of people argue that she did not win, and she has been struggling since then. And you know what? They were not giving her enough time in between fights because they wanted to keep her out there and keep using her name to sell tickets, to sell ratings, what have you. They've done that with Mackenzie Dern, who hasn't really had any time to improve. They did it to Amanda Hebos, who wasn't being given enough time to improve between fights. And what happened to those ladies? Both of them came up against Marina Rodriguez in that case. Well, Dern came up against Hebos, came back, got some better fights, still kept getting pushed unusually, because usually once you lose, you're not getting the push again. But Dern got the push. And then she came up against Marina Rodriguez. Amanda Hebos was getting the push, and then she came up against Marina Rodriguez. So boom, both of those fighters are sitting out right now going, wow, what happened? So I like this. Her team recognizes that she was being fast-tracked and have said that, slow down. So let's continue. It says, quote, I want to take the long road. I want to fight everyone in the division. I want to experience everything in this journey so that when I get to the top, I can be the next dominant champion. I think that's where people go wrong. They get fast-tracked by the company and they love it. Strokes their ego a little bit. They're winning and they feel like they can do it, make money, and all of that. Then they get pushed a little bit too fast. They run into somebody they're not ready for and they end up getting taken out and they're never the same again. I'm not looking to do that. I'm not looking to burn out early. I'm looking to retire as a fighter. I don't want to do this for 2 or 3 years and get a job. I want to do this for the rest of my life. I know it's a marathon and not a sprint. We're going to take our time. It still hurts a little bit to turn it down, but I know opportunities will come and they'll be better next year. Fellas, you get someone that's smart like this is a keeper. This is like a woman with a good head on her shoulders. That's like wife material right there. She is very smart. she is thinking long term when most fighters only think short term. Very surprising from Casey O'Neill. I love that, to see that from a fighter, someone who's thinking long term. And she's only 24 years old. You know, most people, fighters that are 24 years old, they're not thinking long term. They're still thinking in the short term. Okay, it says O'Neill is ultimately content with her decision to play the long game, especially with it being so early in her pro career, which began a little over 2 years ago. She knows that shiny new ranking next to her name will now act as a target on her back and expects to hear her name said many times into live microphones moving forward. That was crazy, O'Neill said. I didn't expect to be ranked because she wasn't ranked when I fought her, but it got explained to me that because I got the 3 finishes and being on a win streak, I was put in there. It's really exciting, and it's something I wanted to be. I want to be in the top 15. I want to be top 10, top 5, the champ. She says, baby steps, but I've got the first one now. The first couple of bucket list items are checked off. I know that now that I'm in the top 15, I'm the one that people are going to want to call out, and I'm looking forward to that. Hey, hands off to King Casey O'Neill for being one of the smartest fighters in the game right now. Everything that she is saying in this article is big brain stuff, you know, big brain. And I know a lot of times people say that and it's like sarcastic. I'm being serious right now. She is being very smart. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to resist that push because the UFC might decide, well, if she doesn't want to get the fast track, then we'll look at someone else. But the fact is, the opportunities are still going to be there for her. It might just take a little bit longer. But she's smart. She knows. She's 24. She's still learning as a fighter. She's only 8-0. She's only 8-0 as a professional fighter. Most fighters don't even get into UFC with only 8 fights. If it were a much deeper division, she definitely wouldn't be in the UFC with only 8 pro fights. But here she is, and she's in the top 15. And they're trying to fast track her, and she and her team are like, whoa, slow down, UFC. Slow down. I got to take some time between fights to work on things and to get better. And that's using your head as a fighter. That is using your head as a fighter. Like I said, bravo, Casey O'Neill, for actually using your brain as a fighter. Something that most fighters seem to have a severe allergy to. Let's see what's going on up in the chat here. It says Robert Softman says Zhang gets KO'd in first, gets immediate rematch. What kind of horseshit is that? Yeah, everybody says it's horseshit, but Chinese money. Brian says, I agree. Hill beat Claudia and Watterson, in my opinion. Are you an equestrian rider, Brian? I'm looking at your little profile pic, your avatar there. Robert says, women's MMA is all left up, and it's not even their fault. No, it's not even, well, some of the ladies are contributing to the problem, but some of them aren't. Brian says, do you think taller frame fighters like Joanna, Rose, Marina, Nina, and Jan should be up at flyweight? But Robert says there are more factors to weight class than just height, and I agree. Like, height doesn't always say a whole lot. I mean, there's a girl who's 5'6", and she fights at atom weight, and she looks just fine there. So there's definitely more to it than just height. Yeah, like bone size, density, etc. It's about your overall frame. I mean, if you're tall but super skinny, then you're not going to do well at flyweight. And then they continue on with that. Robert says Marina Rodriguez is fire. And O'Neill is amazing. Wise beyond her years. I agree. Oh, so you're an equestrian rider. That's pretty cool. My mom's owned horses in the past. Not really like equestrian style, but she likes to ride horses. All right, so next up, I want to talk about, here we go. So this was a neat little tweet I saw, and I retweeted it at now WMMA on Twitter. It's from Nori of Team Pravajra. Nori and Karen both are fighting this weekend at Pancrase 324. Nori on the left in these little pics is fighting for the interim flyweight Queen of Pancrase title. And Karen is going to be in her 4th pro fight, and she's only 18 years old. But here's what they did. You know, these are little Kit Kat bars and little packages. And they put pictures on these Kit Kat bars. And what I put was, you know, it seems Nori and Karen of Team Pravajra made special Kit Kat packages with their picture for everyone who purchased tickets for Pancrase 324 through them. It says, I like the appeal and the ingenuity. So basically, what happens in most MMA promotions outside the UFC doesn't need to do this, but Bellator does it, particularly for like the local fighters they bring in for the prelims and stuff. And most promotions overall do this. They hand the fighters X amount of tickets to sell to a show and say, hey, it's on you to sell these tickets. A chunk of your pay is going to be coming out of these ticket sales. So it's kind of a dick thing to do to fighters, but it also ensures that tickets get sold to the show and that it brings in a good crowd that's going to be cheering for local fighters to a particular show. So what Nori and Karen did here from Team Pravajra, they came up with a neat way to reward people who bought tickets from them to the event. So everybody that bought a ticket gets one of these Kit Kat packages, and there are 3 different pictures. So, you know, 3 different people might get 3 different pictures, and it's a nice way of saying like, hey, thank you for buying our tickets. Here's a little personalized award here. And I think that's very smart marketing, and they even use, you know, the Kit Kat label. So maybe they reached out to Kit Kat in Japan. I'm not sure how it works, how they worked that, but I think this is very, very smart little marketing here. A nice way to reward their fans. These girls came from Team Date, and Team Date was very, very market savvy. You know, knew how to appeal to certain fans. Basically treated the team almost like an idol group in Japan. So they came from, you know, they brought this marketing with them, even though they're not part of Team Date anymore. They still get the marketing appeal, which is very smart. And, you know, this is something I see a lot more out of fighters in Japan than I see in the West, particularly in the US. They're doing things to really award their fans. They'll have, you know, meetups with their fans. Like I know King Reina has done like several like barbecues and picnics with her fans. Like she said, hey, we'll meet at this day, at this place, at this time for a barbecue, a picnic. And she's done that with her fans. Like King Reina is very interactive with her fans. I know Reina Kubota, who's going to headline Rise in 32 next month. She actually has a legit fan club. Now she's been fighting as a pro for over 10 years between MMA and shoot boxing. And so she has been, you know, she is well established. And she has an actual fan club where you pay a fee, like almost like a 90s like pop group used to do. Where you sign up, you get like an actual membership card to the fan club. You get certain bonuses. You get updates. Well, probably via email now, I would imagine. They sold custom, like Reina, you know, face masks last year. I was trying to get a hold of one, wasn't able to, but it had her little R symbol on it. It was really cool looking. So she like has a legit fan club and interacts regularly with her fans. Now, you just don't see this that often in the US, like little stuff like this. Now, there are some fighters that are active on social media and interact with their fans regularly, but it's it's not something like quite on the level. Well, nothing's on the level of probably Reina, but like even with the Team Pravajra girls, where they're doing stuff like this. You don't really see stuff like this out of fighters in the U.S. It's mostly like, hey, join my OnlyFans, or hey, if you want to sponsor me, here's how you can sponsor me, which is nice. I mean, they'll usually shout out their sponsors, whether through social media or in a post-fight interview, but nothing quite like, hey, buy the tickets and I'll give you one of these, like a nice little Kit Kat package with a picture. Or, I mean, little stuff like this goes a long way in building a fan base that is loyal, that, supports you actively, stuff like this. I like what I see out of these fighters in Japan when they do stuff like this. I think it's very, very smart marketing. It's just very smart, and it's different. It's different. Like a lot of fighters, you're lucky if you can get them, like especially the bigger they are. Good luck even getting, them to respond to you on, Instagram or Twitter. I mean, smaller fighters will all day because they know I got to build up my fan base. Now, more popular fighters, it's hard to respond to everyone. That's a given. But I think that if fighters that are smaller time, like the Pravajra girls right now, you do this stuff at this level, and it ensures that those fans stick with you at the higher level. So I wanted to just bring this up because I thought it was really neat. I'm like, pictures on a Kit Kat bar. It's different. I've never seen something, quite like this. So I thought it was worth talking about. And then final thing I want to talk about tonight. So if you follow Invicta on Instagram, they've been talking about the new Halle Berry movie, Bruised, that's coming out. And it seems like the penultimate fight in there is based in Invicta. And Halle Berry shown up to one or two Invicta events and has used actual fighters in this movie. So I'm sure a lot of people are excited about it. Now, I'm not going to play the trailer, but I'll fast forward to certain points in it. But where it's like way at the end here. So you might not be able to see it in this small of a picture. Let me enlarge this more. You can tell who that is. That's Valentina Shevchenko. Where are they in? They're in the Invicta cage, wearing Invicta gloves. So Invicta's getting a big feature in this movie, which is nice to see. So I wasn't as much looking forward to this movie. I'm like thinking, come on, another MMA movie. Because let's be honest, most MMA movies are freaking terrible. They're terrible. They're bad. Like they're terror bad. Are most MMA movies. So I wasn't really looking forward to this, but now that the trailer's out, I'm looking forward to it. Now it's one of those martial arts tropes, or one of those fight sport trope movies where, oh, she was a former great, and now she's fallen a long way, and now she's going to look to make a comeback. It seems like she has a son that she had forgotten about, and he shows up out of nowhere because her husband died or went to jail or disappeared or something. Her ex, the kid's dad. And so now the kid gets dumped on her, and she's got to, get back into fighting shape in order to make money. So pretty typical fighter movie trope, but it works. It's basically, this movie reminds me, from what it seems like, the storyline reminds me of the movie Warrior with Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy. It seems like Warrior, but without the brother. So, Joel Edgerton's character in that was a washed up former fighter who was forced to start taking fights in order to raise money so that, you know, his kid was sick. They were going to lose the house. So he had to start taking fights again in order to make money, and took opportunities from there. So Bruised is written by Michelle Rosenfarb. It's directed by Hallie. And it's going to be on Netflix in select theaters November, and on Netflix November 24th. So I think what I'm going to do is, I have Netflix. I'll watch it just to, you know, support Invicta and everything. Like I said, I wasn't looking forward to this movie at first, but it's kind of got me excited because of the whole Invicta tie-in. It's hard for me to buy Halle Berry as a portraying a fighter, because she's old. She's like 50-something, and skinny as a toothpick, has never been very athletic. What little muscle she's ever put on for movies has always been about, you know, aesthetic rather than functional. But Robert Saltman says she's the same age as Randy Couture, isn't she? So I'm not sure how old Randy is, but Halle Berry. According to Wikipedia, she is 55. Oh, she's older than I thought. I thought she was like 53. She's 55. So she's no spring chicken. But anyway, this is going to be on Netflix November 24th. I think I'm going to have to schedule a watch party for this one. So if people get interested, and I'll put out a poll. If enough people respond in a positive, I will do a watch party for this one. You know, I won't show the movie itself, but I'll watch it on Netflix. I'll do it live. I'll do a live stream, and we'll talk about the movie as it's going on. We'll maybe, you know, we'll pick it apart, talk about things we like, what we don't like, and we'll do a watch party for it. But I'll tell you what, out of all the MMA movies that are out there, my favorite one, Warrior is up there. Never Back Down was really stupid and retarded. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying the R word, but it was beyond stupid. Red Belt was good from a technical standpoint, but it was basically a B movie. Here Comes the Boom. It was a nice little storyline, goofy as heck, unrealistic. Well, somewhat unrealistic. But overall, it wasn't a bad movie. It was just, for MMA standpoint, it was really silly. But I'll tell you my favorite MMA movie. Is this one. And it's a little hard, too glossy. Fist of Legend. It's a Korean movie starring one of my favorite Korean actor, Hwan Jung-min. And like, the movie itself is not about MMA. A reality show, an MMA reality show, is like the driving force behind these old friends from high school meeting each other again. Like, they all end up meeting each other again through the show. And it's a really good story. I highly recommend it. I think it's on Netflix. If you want to watch it, I've watched it a bunch of times, but I actually have the physical media because, well, that's a different subject, but you should definitely want to own physical media right now, because they are changing things on the digital copies that it's getting harder to find the original movies because they're going back in and they're doing stealth edits. But anyway, let me see if this is still on Netflix. So it is not on Netflix anymore. Let me see if it's on Amazon. Because if you can watch it on Amazon Prime, would I recommend it? If you have Amazon Prime, so you can rent it for $1.99 or buy it on Prime Video for $1.99. Oh wait, no, it's not available on Prime, unfortunately. But it's a good movie. It's about, this TV show called Legendary Fighter brings in these old guys who are like legendary fighters in their high school days. Like there's tales, like there's stories still being told to this day about things these guys did as fighters in their high school. Because like in Korean high schools, and this is true, like I've had people confirm that this is true, like in high schools, there's always like a number 1 and a number 2, and they're like the strongest guys in the high school. And they might be bullies or they might be protectors of the school, but they're like, everyone knows like this guy is the strongest fighter in the school. And sometimes they'll take on the strongest from other schools. Like that actually happens in real life, or at least it did. And basically the TV show in this movie brings in the strongest fighters, and then they bring in this guy. His name's Im. He owns a noodle shop. He's a widower, and they bring him on, and he does really well. And then they bring in, he meets one old friend there in the second half of the show, and then they keep bringing him back on because it's one of those shows where you stay on as long as you're winning, like kind of like Jeopardy. And then they brought in one of his other former friend, and he kind of like threw the fight against him because he wasn't so much wanting to fight him. I was really shocked to see him. And then it goes through these flashbacks of how these guys met in school, how they became good friends, and then there was a tragedy that caused them to all like split up. And it's been years since they've seen each other, and now the show has brought them back together. It's really good because they're not trained fighters, but then the show ends up training them, and they end up doing like a big one-night tournament. So it's really good though. I'm not going to spoil it. Those are just like some basic details. But if you get a chance to watch it, if you're bored and you want to spend $1.99 to rent it or buy it on Amazon Prime Video, go ahead. I'm surprised. I thought it was still on Netflix, but I guess it's not. Remember that movie Rampage? GSP and BJ were in. No, I can't remember the name of it. I think it was just one of those terrible movies. There are so many bad fighting movies, MMA movies. It's like, what karate movies were in the 80s, karate and ninja in the 80s and early 90s. Now it's MMA, or at least it was MMA. Most of them are going to be bad and just unrealistic. So, I mean, you just can't take up something and get good within a few months at this point. You just can't, especially MMA. But that's why I like this movie. Like, they're not selling these old guys as like these amazing, great fighters. They're saying, hey, these guys are old, but the fire's there, the spirit's still there. They're trying to learn, and it's who's the legendary fighter. So that's why I like it. But it stars a really good Won Jun-min is probably my favorite Korean actor. He's really good. Been in a bunch of really good movies and drama shows. Really, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. I think it's good because it's not like MMA is the driving force, but it's not like the whole story. Like there's a deep story, kind of like Warrior, with Nick Nolte and these guys both hate their dad and stuff. But like MMA was front and center, whereas in this one, it really is about the story between the tragedy that happened between these four friends that they haven't seen each other in like well over 20 years, like since the 80s. So I like it. But anyway, back to Bruised. Probably I'll have to schedule this one. We'll probably do a watch party for this one for November 24th. But that's really all I have for tonight. So we got all the fights tomorrow. And there's a bunch of fights early Sunday morning in Japan that I'm excited to watch. Sunday night, though, I'm going to do I'm on vacation for the next week. So I'm doing a staycation, stay-at-home vacation. So I'm going to be a little bit bored. Won't have too much to do. So I'm probably going to do some more live streams next week. I'm thinking of doing like several watch parties with fight events, particularly anything that's available on Fight Pass. So I'm thinking Sunday night, not official yet, but Sunday night I might do. I've been wanting to do Invicta 3 because it was just like the 10-year anniversary of Invicta 3 like a couple of weeks ago. And that was a really, really fun event. I mean, let me bring that one up here real quick. Because anyone that wasn't around at the time missed a gem of an event. That was my first Invicta event to watch. So Invicta FC3, Penny versus Sugiyama, the inaugural Atomweight Championship between Jessica Penny and Naho Sugiyama. Sugiyama was undefeated at the time. Penny only had one loss. You had Shayna Baszler versus Sarah DeLeo, Leslie Smith versus Caitlin Young, Barb Honchak versus Ashley Daly. This is 10 years ago. Well, 9 years ago. 9 years ago. So a lot of these names aren't much anymore. Vanessa Porto versus Tara LaRosa. At one point, Tara LaRosa was one of the best women's fighters in the world. Vanessa Porto won, and she's still winning now in Bellator. Kat Zingano versus Rocky Pennington. Michelle Watterson. That was her comeback fight against Lacey Shuckman. Or no, that wasn't her comeback fight, but Julia Budd versus Danielle West. West retired. Carla Esparza was on there versus Lynn Alvarez. JoJo Calderwood taking on Ashley Cummins. Cummins was still a strawweight at the time. Stephanie Frausto, Amy Davis. Jessamine Duke versus Marcia Allen. The debut of the Tiny Tornado, Tisha Torres, taking on Kayana Rain. I should have enlarged this. And then Adrienne Gomes taking on Catalina Malangahu at featherweight. Both of those two fell off the map. But this was a really good event. So I'm thinking of doing a watch party for this as like the second half of the weekend recap on Sunday night. So I'll probably schedule that sometime tomorrow. But yeah, this was a really, really fun event. I remember this one very well. Looks like Sarah Kaufman was supposed to be fighting on that one. She must have dropped out. Yes. Yep, Kaufman was supposed to be on there. She got injured. There was a bunch of fight changes in that one. But yeah, I think we're going to do that Sunday night. So we'll probably do a couple next week because I'll be bored and needing something to do. So anyway, that's all I really have I want to talk about. Like I said, I want to talk about, the strawweight title picture. Carla Esparza is getting hosed, or at least they're going to try to hose her. Casey ONeill, good head on her shoulders. Very smart woman. Wife material. Talked about Team Pravajra. Talked about Bruised, which that was kind of something I wasn't even going to talk about until I saw the trailer out. And yeah, we're probably going to watch Invicta 3. Robert Selfman says, was Nakamoto on that one? So Miriam Nakamoto was not on that one. She did not make her Invicta debut until Miriam Nakamoto did not make her debut. Well, she made her debut on Invicta FC5 with a no contest against Jessamine Duke. Then she beat Duda Yankovic. And then she took the loss to Lauren Murphy in 2013. Has not fought since then. So that is it for tonight. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down and comments down below. If you're watching on a recap, don't forget to like the video. Those likes help drive traffic to the stream. And don't forget to subscribe. Robert Southman says, I pretty much cried. I think it was really tragic what happened to Marina Nakamura. But I'll tell you what, man. That interview she did with Joe Rogan, her podcast appearance, did not do her too many favors. Because she just came across the one where she was talking about like making fun of her, like how she dumped her boyfriend because of the way he like fell when he got knocked out. A lot of people were like, fuck this bitch. Yeah, her knee was utterly wrecked. But yeah, Miriam Nakamura, she was one of those big question marks of women's mixed martial arts. It's a shame. Anyway, like I said, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. But we'll see you Sunday night for the recap.